The jungle screamed, not just with sound but with pain, hunger, and fear. Red vines hung low like twisted ropes. Sharp leaves brushed against the wounded skin of a small figure running barefoot through the shadows. She was not more than 16, maybe younger. Her skin was pale blue, glowing faintly with sweat. Her feet were bleeding. Her arms were scratched. Her chest rose and fell with desperate gasps. Her name was Lyra, and she was running for her life. Behind her, the beasts were coming. They didn't roar like animals. They clicked. A dry, awful sound like bones snapping. 6 legs, razor-sharp claws, 2 sets of jaws. Their eyes burned orange in the dark, and they were getting closer. Lyra stumbled over a root and fell hard on her knees. She didn't cry out. She had no voice left. She pushed herself up, dragging her body forward, legs shaking. She could see an open area ahead, stone ground, Tall, black rock. But it was a trap. The beasts knew she had nowhere else to go. She was bait. Her people had sent her here on purpose. A weak girl, born underweight, slow to heal. Easy prey. Tossed into the jungle like meat to keep the monsters away from the rest of the group. Now she was paying the price. Her back hit the cold rock. She turned and looked up at it, hands trembling. Nothing to climb, no cover, nowhere to hide. Lyra turned around and faced the jungle as the beasts stepped into the open, clicking louder now. 1, 2, 3 of them. One was missing an eye. The other had blood dripping from its jaw, someone else's blood. Her legs gave out. She sank to the ground, arms covering her head. She whispered, "I don't want to die." The lead beast hissed and jumped. "Hey!" Over here, the voice was loud, human, deep. The beast twisted midair, changing its direction. Lyra looked up in shock. Standing just a few meters away, between 2 trees, was a figure. A man. He wore a torn black coat, mud-covered, boots, and a scarf around his mouth. His arms were bare, showing cuts and burns. One hand held a metal pipe. The other gripped something she didn't recognize, flat and glowing. "Come on," the human shouted. The beasts turned toward him, confused for just a moment. Enough. He threw the pipe straight at the nearest one's face. It hit with a crack, breaking a jaw. The beast howled. "Run." He yelled again, but Lyra didn't move. Her body wouldn't obey. Too tired, too broken. The human growled under his breath and rushed toward her. One beast leaped at him, rolled aside, and pulled something from his belt of flare. He snapped it, and it burst into blue fire. The creatures backed off, eyes stinging from the light. He didn't waste time. He dropped to one knee beside Lyra and grabbed her arm. "Can you stand?" She shook her head. Her lips barely moved. He nodded once, picked her up in his arms like she weighed nothing, and turned to run. Behind them, the beasts shrieked in rage and followed. Branches slapped against his face. Vines caught his legs. He kept going. Lyra held onto his shirt weakly, her face buried in his chest. Her heart pounded, not just from fear but shock. A human was saving her. That didn't make sense. Her people said humans were selfish, brutal, unpredictable. But this one smelled of smoke and blood, was carrying her like she mattered. He turned sharply around a mossy hill and slid behind a thick tree. He set Lyra down gently, his chest rising fast. He pulled something from his pack, another flare, a chunk of dry moss, and a wire. "What are you doing?" Lyra finally asked, voice hoarse, distracting them. He tied the wire around the flare and threw it far into the trees, and then he lit it. The light flared blue again, this time away from them. The beasts followed the flash like mindless dogs. The clicking faded. He leaned back against the tree and exhaled. "That'll give us a minute, maybe 2. Lyra looked at him, confused and afraid. "Why? Why what? Why save me?" He looked down at her. His eyes were tired. "Because you're not dead yet." She didn't know what to say. He reached into his pack again and pulled out a water pouch. "Drink." She took it, shaking. 4. A few seconds. There was silence between them. Then the trees shook again. The beasts had returned. One of them stepped into the clearing. Its nose twitched. It saw them. The human stood up. He pulled out his last flare and something else. It looked like a knife, but longer. Rusted. Heavy. He stood between Lyra and the beast. "Stay behind me." The beast let out a screech and pounced. The flare lit up in the human's hand just as the monster leaped at his throat. The beast's leap cut through the air like a thrown blade, but the human didn't flinch. He shifted his foot, just slightly, and twisted his body. At the last second, he raised the flare high. The blue flame roared against the creature's face. The beast screeched in shock as the light hit its eyes, slammed into a nearby trunk instead of his chest, breaking bark and hissing in rage. The human didn't wait. He stepped forward and brought the rusted weapon down hard, across the beast's back. A crack. A howl. The creature dropped with a heavy thud, twitching, then still. Lyra stared in stunned silence. Her people had said humans were clever, but slow. Strong, but sloppy. But this man moved like he'd fought these monsters 100 times. And when he looked at her again, his face in the flare's glow looked calm. "Are you hurt?" he asked. She nodded. "Not worse than before." He walked to her quickly, checking her arms and legs with practiced care. Then he said something. "Strange. You've got soft bones, but your kind heals fast, right?" Lyra blinked. "How do you know that?" He didn't answer, simply picked her up again and started moving through the trees. They traveled in silence this time, both listening. The jungle behind them was louder, now greer. The flare had stirred the beasts, but not for long. He didn't speak again until they came to a ridge, stepped around a sharp drop, then pushed through thick leaves to reveal a low cave, barely tall enough to crawl into. He set her down beside the entrance. Then he dropped to his knees, cleared the dead leaves, and began dragging stones in front of the opening, blocking light, making it near invisible from outside. When they were finally inside, the cave smelled of moss, damp earth, and old smoke. He lit a small, quiet fire with what looked like a heat crystal and fed it with some dried plant matter. The fire gave off warmth, but no smoke. Lyra sat, her legs folded, still watching him. "You act like this isn't your first time," she finally said. "It's not," he replied. "Are you? Stranded here too?" He paused, then gave a short nod. "Crash-landed. 6 months ago." 6 months, she repeated, eyes wide. "But no one survives that long in this jungle." "I didn't plan to, but plans change." She stared at him as he pulled out a cloth and started cleaning his blade. He worked quietly, almost gently. "What's your name?" she asked Jace. She hesitated. "I'm Lyra." He gave a single nod again, but no smile. The silence returned for a while. The fire crackled softly. Outside, a beast shrieked in the distance. Lyra hugged her knees. "They threw me down here," she said quietly. "My own kind. Said I was a burden, too small, not strong enough to be a warrior. So they tied a tracker to my leg and pushed me off the ridge. Said the beasts would follow me and leave them alone." Jace didn't look surprised. "That's what they do," he muttered. "What do you mean?" He turned and looked at her. "You're not the first one I've seen thrown to the jungle?" Lyra blinked. "There were others?" 3-2 didn't last a day. One tried to fight back. That one didn't make it either. Her voice dropped. "What happened to them?" He didn't answer right away. Then he said, "The jungle doesn't care who you are. What matters is if you adapt." Lyra looked down at her leg, the one still bruised and scratched. "Then I'm not sure I'll survive." Jace stood up and picked something from his pack. A small food bar wrapped in metal foil. He tossed it to her. "Eat. Heal. Then learn." "Learn what?" "Stop running." She opened the bar slowly, hands trembling. "You said you've been here 6 months," she said between bites. "Why stay near the beasts? Why not go north, to the rocks? There are old buildings there. Safer." He looked at her. "Because the jungle keeps them away, not just the beasts." "What do you mean?" He leaned closer. His voice was lower now, serious. "There's something worse than these creatures. The ones who feed them. The ones who made this planet a hunting ground." Lyra froze. "Beastmasters," he nodded. "They come down sometimes. collect trophies, watch from above. Her face turned pale. I saw one, she whispered. Before. They threw me. I saw him wearing bones. My people feared him. Jace stared into the fire. They don't just wear bones. They train the monsters, and they sell the hunt. She clenched her fists. Like we're just prey. Jace looked at her, voice hard. That's how they see us, till someone shows them we're not. She met his eyes, and for the first time, saw something deep in them. Not just anger, not just survival, but purpose. As she lay back on the cold, stone floor, tiredness pulling at her eyes, her last thought before sleep was a single question. Who was this human? Because no one she'd ever met fought like him, spoke like him, or carried scars like those. And as she drifted off, the jungle echoed with one more beast scream, but this time, it wasn't a hunting call. It was pain, and someone had made it bleed. When Lyra opened her eyes, the fire was out. The cave was silent. Her body ached, but something inside her felt different. Not healed, but less broken. She sat up slowly. Jace wasn't there. Panic flared for a moment until she saw a folded piece of cloth beside her, still warm. Piece of fruit, strange and purple, lay next to it. He'd gone out and brought her food. He came back. No one ever came back for her. She touched the edge of the cloth like it was something holy. Then her fingers brushed something cold near her ankle. Small black device round, smooth, flashing slowly. The tracker, her face went cold. She'd forgotten it was there. That blinking light was still sending her location, still telling her people where the beasts were, where the bait was. They had never intended for her to survive, just long enough to distract the monsters. She wasn't a girl to them. She was a signal. Lyra's breath caught in her throat. Her fingers shook. She reached down and pulled at the device. Deep under a thin metal strap that had fused to her skin, she bit her lip and kept pulling. Blood ran down her ankle. But the strap snapped. The device dropped with a small click onto the stone floor. Behind her, Jace's voice said, "Smart." She turned, startled. He was standing at the cave entrance, watching her with unreadable eyes. His arms were scratched. His jacket carried new tears. But he was holding a cloth bag, berries, more fruit, and something heavy that looked like roots. "I should have removed it earlier," he added, walking in. "Didn't think you'd live the night." Lyra didn't know whether to feel hurt or proud. "I didn't think so either," she said quietly. He sat beside the dying fire and handed her the bag. She hesitated. "You don't have to keep feeding me. I'll slow you down." "You already slowed me down," he replied without emotion. "Might as well keep you moving." She frowned. "You talk like I'm a burden. Talk like you're not." His tone wasn't cruel, it was honest, cut deeper than any beast's claw. She looked at her hands. "I wasn't trained for survival. I wasn't even taught how to hold a blade." Jace took something from his belt and slid it across the ground toward her. It was a small knife. Dull, heavy, simple. "Start learning," he said. She stared at it, confused now. "You want to live? You don't wait." Her hand closed around the grip. It was colder than she expected. He showed her how to hold it, then how to cut soft fruit with it, and how to carve bark into shapes. Her fingers were clumsy and she flinched with every mistake. But he didn't raise his voice, didn't scold. He simply corrected her, again and again. After an hour, her hands had small cuts. Her knuckles were sore, but she had sliced a root in half perfectly. He nodded. "You'll last longer than the last one." She stopped. "The last what?" But he didn't answer. She pressed. "You said before others were thrown in here. What happened to them?" He hesitated. Then looked toward the mouth of the cave, his voice softer than before. "One was a boy. Thin. Maybe 15. He lasted 4 days. Smart, but scared. Wouldn't move unless I pulled him. We hid in this cave, too. One night I went out to check. Traps came back and the beasts were here. Blood was everywhere." He looked down. "I buried what I could find." Lyra was silent. Then she asked, "Why do you keep saving people?" His answer was long in coming. When it came, it was quiet, because no one saved me. She didn't ask more. Some wounds didn't bleed outside. She looked down at her ankle, the dried blood, the broken tracker, then at her hands, still shaking. "I'm not weak," she said suddenly. Jace didn't reply. "I'm not fast, I'm not trained, but I'm not useless. No one ever gave me a chance." He finally looked at her. "Then take this one." She met his eyes. Outside, the jungle trembled. The creatures were circling again. She could feel it. But this time, she didn't feel like prey. That night, sleep didn't come quickly. Every noise made her fingers tighten around the dull knife. But she stayed beside the fire, awake, listening. And when her eyes finally closed, they weren't full of fear. They were full of a question. If she survived this, if she really made it out, what kind of person would she become? Hadn't killed her, her people had thrown her away, but a stranger had carried her through death, and that changed something. Deep inside her. The first time she swung the knife, it nearly cut her leg. Jace didn't laugh. He didn't even blink. He stepped closer, took her hand, and adjusted her grip. "No wrist movement," he said quietly. "Use your whole arm. Let the weight do the work." Lyra frowned, sweat already on her brow. "It's too heavy for me." He nodded once. "Good. Then you'll learn control faster." She didn't understand that at first, but when she tried again, using her arm and not just her wrist, the blade moved steadier, cleaner. It cut through the dead vine tied to the tree in front of her. Not deep, but it cut. That was enough for her to stop and stare at it. "Again," Jace said, tossing her a second vine. They'd found a clearing that morning, surrounded by thick trunks and broken branches, perfect for training. The sky above was a strange mix of green clouds and twin suns. But here, in this shaded circle, it felt like their own world. Lyra practiced until her hands ached. Then she kept going. Jace taught in silence. Mostly a look, a gesture, a sharp correction. He moved like a ghost through the trees, silent, alert, always watching the leaves above for movement. Sometimes he would disappear for hours, gathering food, hunting, laying traps. But every time, without fail, he returned, and each time he brought her something new. A route that could stop bleeding, a vine that made fire spark, a broken branch shaped like a spear. "Make your own weapon," he said, handing it to her. She blinked. "Why not just give me one of yours?" "You don't understand the value of something unless you've shaped it." So she did. Her first spear was too heavy. Her second was too short. Her third finally felt right in her hand. By the fifth day, she could throw it and hit a tree trunk from 10 feet away. She looked at Jace for approval. He just said, "It's day 5. They'll come again soon." And they did. That night, the air changed. The jungle grew quiet. Jace crouched near the cave's edge, eyes locked on the tree line. Lyra sat beside him, her heart beating fast. "You feel it?" she asked. She nodded. "Everything's holding its breath." He looked at her surprised. "Good, you're starting to hear the wild." Then came the sound. Slow, distant, like heavy feet sliding over wet ground. But it wasn't just one. Lyra held her spear tighter. "How many?" Jace raised 2 fingers. 2 beasts, but these weren't like the others. Their growls were softer, their steps more careful, smarter, trained, she whispered. "Beastmasters." He didn't answer, but the way he gripped his blade told her enough. The monsters stepped into the clearing just as the first moon rose above the trees. Lyra had never seen ones like these. Their skin was armored with thick scales. Their jaws had metal hooks tied into the teeth. One of them had marks carved into its back runes that glowed faintly. They weren't just beasts. They were scent. Jace took a single step forward. "Behind me," Lyra stood beside him instead. He didn't stop her. The first beast lunged. Jace moved low and fast, slicing along its leg. The creature stumbled, roared, and turned to strike, but Lyra was already there. Her spear shot forward, not a deep hit, but enough to pierce soft flesh under the jaw. The beast reeled back in shock, bleeding. The second one came faster. Lyra froze, but Jace stepped in, slamming a smoke pot into its mouth. It burst in a cloud of white fire. The creature choked, stumbled, and she threw her spear with a cry. It hit the eye. The beast screamed and thrashed. Crashing through trees, silence returned. Both monsters were gone. Her hands were shaking. Her knees felt like they would buckle. But she had stood, and she had fought. Jace was breathing hard, blood on his sleeve. He looked at her. "You didn't freeze. You almost did," she said. "But you didn't." She looked down at her spear. Blood on the tip. Her first kill. Her breath caught in her throat. She didn't know whether to cry or laugh. "I thought I couldn't do this." "You thought wrong," he said simply. They sat down beside the fire later, tired and quiet. She poked at the flames. "I was supposed to die in that jungle," she said softly, "and I think... maybe a part of me did." Jace stared into the fire, then let that part stay dead. She looked up. "You're not who they threw away." He continued, "You're who survived." Stars above them blinked in strange patterns. Somewhere far off, a beast howled, but it didn't sound like a threat anymore. It sounded like something desperate, because in the jungle, something had changed. A small, broken girl had risen, and the beasts would learn she wasn't bait anymore. She was becoming a hunter. Lyra awoke to a world that felt different. She heard birdsong, a rare sound in this violent jungle land for the first time. She didn't flinch. Her arms ached from training, but it was a good ache, a sign she was growing stronger. Rays of sunlight slanted through the leaves. She noticed Jace already at work, setting traps with quiet patience. He looked over and nodded. "Up early. Good." Lyra smiled, something she hadn't done in days. She helped him with the traps, using knots and patterns he'd shown her. There was an unspoken trust now, a rhythm to their partnership. She found herself copying his movements, watching how he moved like he was part of the jungle itself. That morning, Jace handed her an old device. "Ever use one of these?" he asked. Lyra shook her head. "Is it a weapon?" He laughed softly. "Not unless you want to throw it at something." It was a communicator card, dusty, its screen flickering. "I've been trying to fix this. Maybe send a message, or maybe just hear a voice." She studied it, careful fingers brushing. The buttons. "Can I try?" He nodded and watched, letting her figure it out. The communicator felt strange and heavy in her hand. She pressed a few keys, and suddenly a faint beep echoed through the air. The small screen flashed red dot. Jace looked over sharply. "What did you press?" I just wanted to see if it worked," she stammered. The device blinked again. Strange voice, garbled, distant, but not human, spoke through static. Lyra froze. Jace quickly took the communicator and shut it off, his face serious. "That signal, it wasn't ours," he said. Lyra felt her chest tighten. Was it the Beastmaster's? He didn't answer right away. Checked the device, eyes narrow. "If they heard that, they'll come to check. We need to be ready." They moved fast. Jace packed their supplies and smothered the fire, while Lyra scanned the tree line with new alertness. She remembered every lesson Jace had drilled into her. Move quietly, stay low. Watch the wind. Listen for silence, because sometimes silence is more dangerous than noise. They set extra traps, camouflaged the cave entrance, and planned escape routes. For the first time, Lyra felt she was more than just a passenger in this struggle. She was a partner. Night fell quickly. The jungle changed colors, reds to deep green, green to silver, then black. They took turns watching the perimeter. Lyra clutched her spear tight, forcing herself not to blink too long. Midnight came, and a sound low, humming, not quite natural. Jace tensed. "Get back." They hid behind a boulder, peering through the leaves. Lights swept over the trees. A ship landed sleek, dark, cruel. Its engines howled as the ramp dropped. 3 figures stepped out, cloaked in black, their faces hidden behind bone masks. Each one carried a long staff tipped with teeth. Beastmaster's one knelt and placed a hand to the ground. sniffing the air like an animal. The others spread out, clicking their tongues, sending soft signals the jungle beasts understood. In the distance, Lyra heard answering growls. Jace's face was stone. They're calling the pack. Lyra's heart pounded. What do we do? We survive, he whispered. Just like before. Stay quiet. Move when I move. He crept away from the cave, using the traps as a shield. Jace led. Lyra followed. He barely breathed as Beastmasters drew nearer, their footsteps light, but certain. Twice, Lyra almost stepped on a branch, but caught herself in time. A sudden, sharp yelp echoed in the darkness. One of their traps had snapped shut, catching a beast by the leg. The creature screamed, flailing. One Beastmaster cursed, and moved to free it. But the commotion gave Jace and Lyra the chance to slip farther away. They found cover in a dry riverbed, hearts thundering. Jace leaned close. They'll keep hunting. They're here for you. Lyra's breath caught. For me. He nodded. That signal they tracked lost prey, escaped game. They don't like unfinished hunts. Lyra pressed her back to the riverbed. Wall, feeling the weight of her journey thrown away by her own people, hunted by monsters, chased now by the ones who owned the monsters. She should have felt weak again, but she didn't. I'm not running anymore, she whispered. If they want to hunt, I'll fight. Jace looked at her, something proud flickering in his eyes. Then let's make them bleed. Suddenly, another voice cut through the darkness. Cold, cruel, echoing across the stones. Beastmaster speaking. Her language, Lyra, daughter of a coward clan. Surrender now, and your pain ends. Resist, and we tear you apart. Jace drew his blade. No one's tearing you apart tonight. But as he spoke, Lyra caught a movement beyond the tree line. Her eyes narrowed. In the dim light, she saw something impossible, a face she recognized. Her own brother, cloaked in the Beastmasters. Colors stepped out beside them. She gasped. That's my brother. The world seemed to spin. Jace's hand closed on her shoulder. He's with them? Lyra nodded, heartbreaking. Everything had changed, and the real fight was about to begin. Lyra could not look away from the face in the darkness. Her brother, her own blood, stood beside the Beastmasters. His eyes were colder than the night air, his posture stiff, as if held together only by pride and bitterness. Gone was the boy she remembered from childhood. Gone was the brother who once shielded her from cruel words and bullies. Now, he wore a bone mask and black cloak, marked as one of them. Jace's grip on her shoulder was gentle but unyielding. He kept his voice low. If you hesitate, you die. Do you understand? Lyra didn't answer. Her throat felt tight. Her brother's gaze met hers, but there was no kindness in it, only a warning. The lead Beastmaster, taller than the rest, and adorned in thick furs and polished skulls, stepped forward. His voice, when it came, was heavy with authority and disdain. You, human, give us the girl and you leave alive. This is not your world, not your fight. Jace's answer was a steady stare. You sent monsters after her, I sent them back. You want her? You come through me, the Beastmaster sneered. You fight well, but you bleed the same as the rest. He gestured to the side, and two beasts slithered forward, massive things with scarred hides. Jaws that split twice down the middle. Lyra's spear felt small in her hand. Her brother's voice echoed in the shadows, half plea, half threat. Lyra, come here. This isn't the place for you. If you run, they'll make it hurt. Just come. Don't make this worse. Her whole body shook, but she stepped forward. Why are you with them? His jaw tensed. Survival. They offered me life. What did you ever offer, Lyra? What did our people ever offer us? I was nothing. Now I am more. Pain seared through her. They made you betray your own? He raised his mask, revealing a scar running from brow to jaw. We were already betrayed, Lyra. This jungle, this hunt, it's all we were ever worth. Jace stepped in front of her, his blade shining in the moonlight. Enough talk. If they want her, they go through both of us. The Beastmaster gave a signal. The beasts charged. Jace moved with terrifying speed, meeting the first monster with a wild swing, ducking beneath claws and rolling aside as teeth snapped at his head. Lyra, heart racing, raised her spear. The second beast came for her, massive eyes glowing, claws digging up earth. For a heartbeat, she froze. Then she remembered. Jace's voice in her ear. Let the weight do the work. She steadied herself, waited, and as the beast lunged, she sidestepped. Jabbing the spear with all her strength into its side, it shrieked, blood splattering her hands. She pulled back, spun, and stabbed again, this time deeper. Jace was a blur of motion, kicking, slashing, yelling to draw the monsters away from Lyra. But there were too many. More Beastmasters stepped out of the ship, flanking them, guiding the beasts like puppeteers. Suddenly her brother rushed forward, not at Jace, but at her. He tackled her to the ground, pinning her arms. Stop fighting, Lyra, he hissed. Desperate, eyes wild. They'll kill you if you don't give up. You don't have to die here. Just surrender. She struggled beneath him, fury burning in her chest. Rather die fighting than live as a pet. She twisted, using the skills Jace had taught her. She kneed her brother in the stomach and rolled free, snatching her spear as she scrambled up. The nearest beast leapt for her, but she threw the spear into its open jaws. It fell, writhing, snapping at empty air. Jace, outnumbered, bled from a cut above his eyebrow. He staggered but did not fall. He caught her eye. Now, Lyra, the ship. We take it, or we die. They ran Jace first, hacking a path through the Beastmasters. Lyra closed behind. Her brother stumbled after her, calling her name, torn between loyalty and survival. They reached the ramp of the ship. The lead Beastmaster blocked their way, raising his staff high, brought it down in a flash of sparks. Jace caught the blow. On his blade, gritting his teeth, Lyra darted behind the Beastmaster, grabbing a fallen staff, and slammed it into the back of his knees. He roared, spun, and knocked her aside. She crashed into the metal ramp, stars spinning in her vision. Jace fought with everything he had, arms trembling, blood dripping from his fingers, but Lyra was not the same girl who had once been left to die. She rose, picked up her spear, and screamed not in fear but in rage. She drove the point into the Beastmaster's side. He bellowed, falling to his knees. Jace seized the moment and struck him across the skull. The leader collapsed. The remaining Beastmasters hesitated. Their monsters sensed weakness, confused by the shift in power. Jace dragged Lyra up the ramp. Her brother, stunned, bloodied, looked at her with regret and longing. Lyra, please. But she shook her head. If you want to live free, fight for it, she said, tears running down her face. He hesitated, torn. But then he turned and hurled his staff at a Beastmaster who lunged at Jace. With a final burst of strength, Lyra slammed the ship's door closed, locking it. Alarms blared. Inside, Jace staggered to the control panel, punching buttons at random. Do you know how to fly this? Lyra shouted. Not yet, Jace grunted, but there's a first time for everything. Outside, the monsters clawed at the metal, shrieking. Beastmasters pounded on the hull, furious. Lyra pressed her hand to the window, watching her brother fight in the chaos. For a moment, their eyes met, a silent promise. A goodbye and maybe hope. The engines whined. Jace grinned, wild and exhausted. Hold on, Lyra. We're not dying tonight. The ship lifted, smoke trailing behind as they broke free from the jungle at last. Below, the Beastmasters howled at the stars, powerless and in the sky. To outcasts once prey, now something more set a new course. The ship shook as it rose above the jungle, engines groaning with strain, lights flickering. Smoke and fire painted the ground below. Lyra clung to the edge of her seat, her whole body aching, eyes glued to the small viewport as trees and monsters vanished beneath a storm of dust. Jace wrestled with the controls, sweat streaming down his brow. The ship was designed for Beastmasters, not for human hands. Buttons flashed in colors he'd never seen before. Symbols danced across the screen, none of them familiar. But his hands were steady, his eyes sharp. He pushed levers, flipped switches. And slowly, like a wounded animal, the ship climbed higher. Through clouds swirling silver and purple in the dawn, alarms screamed. Behind them, something heavy slammed against the sealed door, a last beast, or maybe a beastmaster, refusing to accept defeat. Jace didn't flinch. He kept the ship straight, coaxing it into open sky. Lyra forced herself to breathe. In the air felt impossible. She remembered the feel of claws, the stink of blood, her brother's voice half love, half hate ringing in her ears. She remembered the words of the Beastmaster, promising her pain. But all that faded, replaced by the thunder of engines and the wild hope rising in her heart. She looked at Jace. "Where are we going?" He laughed, ragged and breathless. "Anywhere but down." The ship burst above the last layers of cloud. Starlight flooded the cabin. The jungle, the beasts, even the ruins of her people's camps, all of it became tiny, distant, powerless. Jace found a stable orbit. The engines eased into a low hum. Alarms went silent, one by one. Finally, he slumped back, chest heaving. Lyra was quiet. Then she whispered, "We did it." He glanced over, a tired smile on his lips. "You did it." They sat in silence for a long while, listening to the gentle hum of the ship. Eventually, Lyra rose and moved to the viewport. Far below, the planet spun green and gold, ringed by storms. She pressed her palm to the cold glass. All her life, that world had been her prison. Her people's fear, their rules, their cruelty. Been cast out as bait, hunted for sport, thrown away. And now she had crossed the sky. Carved her own path out of fire and blood. Jace came and stood beside her. "You don't owe me anything," he said softly. "If you want, I can take you to a human colony. There are safe places out there. You can start over." Lyra shook her head. "You saved me. You taught me how to fight. But more than that, you showed me I could survive. I don't want to hide anymore." He was quiet, thinking. She turned to face him. "There are others like us, aren't there? Thrown away, hunted, betrayed by their own?" He nodded. "Too many." "Then let's find them," she said. "Give them what no one gave us, a chance." A small smile crept onto Jace's face, the first real smile she'd ever seen from him. "You really want to be a hero?" He teased. Lyra laughed, and the sound was strong and bright, echoing in the empty ship. "Not a hero," she said. "Not prey. They got to work together." Jace guided her through the ship's systems, and Lyra, quick to learn, helped map the stars. They found a beacon broken but repairable. Together, they sent out a signal, a simple message in every language they knew. "You are not alone. There's a way out. We're waiting." Days passed. Wounds healed. The fear inside Lyra became something new, courage. She trained every day, sharpening her skills, growing stronger. She taught Jace what she knew of her people's tech, and he taught her more about survival, about trust. One morning, as a new sun rose beyond the viewport, the ship's sensors beeped a faint signal. Far away, answering theirs, Lyra's heart pounded. She gripped Jace's arm. "Someone heard us," she breathed. He nodded, hope and pride mixing in his eyes. Time to show them what happens when the hunted become the hunters. Outside, the universe waited, dangerous, unknown, but full of new beginnings. Lyra looked out at the stars, the old pain finally fading. She wasn't the girl who'd been thrown to the beasts anymore. She was the one who had survived, the one who had fought, the one who would lead. And as the ship soared into the light, leaving the jungle and all its monsters far behind, she knew she would never be prey again. Not as long as she had her own strength, not as long as she had hope, and not as long as she stood with someone who believed she was worth saving. The end.